All right, everybody. Very cool opportunity for me. We got a special guest today. Our special guest is Robyn Wilson. She works with us at Venue Kings. She's our chief operating officer, which is very good for us at Venue Kings.
Start video.
Paul, did you say something there?
Nope. I think someone got them.
All right, people, mute it if you haven't muted it. Anyway, Robyn runs our business essentially at Venue Kings. She's chief operating officer. Before she started working at Venue Kings, she went to Yorkhouse Secondary School, where she was coached by Winston Brown and Dave Brisnati, which is obviously where Nadine goes to school. And then after that, she ended up going to Bishops, and we'll tell a little story of how this all went. So, Robyn, thank you very much for joining us.
It's awesome. You guys just did a workout?
Yeah, they just did a workout. Kat led the way with a nice 45-minute workout. Tell us when you got started playing basketball. When did you know that basketball was something you wanted to do and take it pretty seriously growing up?
I think first time I ever played basketball, I played on the playground in elementary school, and I was the only girl. Yeah, so I would have been probably in grade 4. Definitely didn't take it seriously. It was just something fun to do. I played football. I played basketball. Just enjoyed playing sports. And then in grade 6, I joined the basketball team, and I actually played on the grade 7 team. And I played, there used to be a program in Vancouver called RBL. I think it's still around.
Still around, yeah.
But I played on a team there, and just really enjoyed it. I also played field hockey when I was younger, and field hockey was my main sport probably until I was about 15. I played both of them, so I would go from field hockey to basketball, back to training, back to basketball, and it was just a lot. So at a certain point, I think it was about grade 10, I had to decide which one I wanted to take seriously, and so I picked basketball because I liked it more. I was better at field hockey, but I just enjoyed the sport more, and so field hockey kind of became my training. So I used it to, I mean, in an average field hockey game, you run like 10 kilometers, so that was more like my cross training, and then basketball was what I really enjoyed. So it kind of took off from, I would say, about grade 9, 10.
All right, so I believe you started at McGee, correct?
I did. I went to McGee for grade 8 and grade 9, and then I transferred to Yorkhouse in grade 10.
How'd you do at Yorkhouse? Tell us a little bit about your Yorkhouse experience.
Yorkhouse was fun. We had a good team. We won provincials all 3 years that I was at Yorkhouse, so winning also makes it fun. Yeah, it was also a very different experience. The group that I went through with, there were about 10 of us that were in the same grade that were just constantly in a gym, and we ended up getting the security guard to open the gym for us on weekends. We were in there before school. We ended up getting a key to the gym. So we kind of just lived in there, and it wasn't somebody telling us to be there. It was fun. It was where we got to hang out. It was where we got to be creative. It's where we got to kind of just be kids. And so I think we spent a lot of time just hanging out in the gym, and because of that we got to know each other really well, and I think that helped us play even better together.
Yeah, for sure. And it when you put in enough time, it becomes a cool thing to do at the school, right? So people start recognizing you as somebody who plays on the basketball team. People start giving you the respect of being one of those committed kids, right? And that's kind of cool to see as well.
Totally. And the thing about Yorkhouse was they had a culture of basketball at the school before I got there. So you felt like you were part of something. And I think it wasn't a pressure. It was more of just that was the community and the culture you had there. And so I think that you, in a way, you carried it on. And it was interesting as I transitioned out of grade 12 and watched the tradition there continue. And they won provincials the year after I left as well. So you could see that culture continue through. And then when I graduated university, I went back and coached at Yorkhouse. So it was kind of interesting being on the other side of the bench. And we actually went AAA that year and got to the provincial finals. So it was cool being able to say I went to provincials as a coach and a player.
Yeah, very cool. So after you finished Yorkhouse, you ended up going to play at Bishops. What got you to go to Bishops?
That was a really random story. So I wanted to play basketball post-secondary, but I also am a little bit academic. So my dream was to go to Harvard. And I applied and I got through the initial interview stage. I did an interview with actually one of the moms, oddly enough, from St. George's, and it went well. I made it through to the very last stage of interviews and then got denied. So my dreams were shattered of going to Harvard. And I'd actually had a Harvard flag on my wall since I was a little kid. So it was pretty devastating. And then by that point, it was April of 2010. So I didn't really have anywhere, April of 2005. So I didn't really have anywhere that was kind of still open or available to play basketball. And Bruce Langford actually had a connection with someone at Bishop's. And so the coach there, Rod, had never seen me play, but he said, hey, like, we want to recruit you. I guess just Bruce had given him a rundown of what I was like as a person, as a player. And so he came out to watch us at provincials when I had already said I was going to go to Bishop's, and saw me play for the first time then. And so I packed up everything in September and decided to move to a really small town in Quebec where they have more bars than they do streetlights, and started my life there. And it was a big culture shock because not only was it a French school, or it's a French town, it's an English school, but I was also 17 and that far away from my family for the first time. So it didn't help that I also decided to take 6 classes, work, and volunteer while I was also playing basketball. I don't recommend doing that. But Hold on a second.
Don't just gloss over that. Explain that a little bit for me.
So when I was on academic scholarship, so in order to have an academic scholarship, regardless of if you're an athlete or not, you have to take 5 courses at Bishop's. So I just think I took on too much and decided I would take a 6th one because it looked interesting. I was playing basketball, so my first semester training preseason when you're at university is more grueling than your regular season because you're training 2-a-days. You have preseason games, you're playing inter-squad games, you're working out. It's a lot, and you're traveling as well because you're trying to play people that are outside of the normal teams that you play. So on top of that, I had volunteered to be on an athletic committee. So we had meetings for that. And then I was working at the Sportsplex. So I had a 5 a.m. shift before we had workouts in the morning. So that was my first semester at university. And when I came home at Christmas time, I think I slept for 2 days. I was home for 3 because I was in poli-sci, and our exams were always the latest ones. And being from the West Coast, I also had the furthest to travel. So I think my first year, my last exam was on the 20th of December. I flew home the next day. I was home for the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, or 3 days in there. And then I flew on Boxing Day back to Bishop's because we had a Christmas tournament on the 27th, and I had to be there. I think I left Christmas Day at night on the red eye and was back for the 26th for a practice, and then we had a game on the 27th. So for about 2 of the days I was home after that first semester, I just slept, and then it was kind of a day of Christmas, and then it was back to it. So my first semester at university was not an easy one, sort of self-inflicted.
So let's be proactive. Let's give kids like an example. Like, if you could go back in time and you could do it again, give us like just 2 quick little bullet points. What are you doing to kind of adjust and give yourself the opportunity to be a little more successful in that first semester?
Yeah, I think like looking back, what I would have done differently is taken on slightly, let go a little bit of the idea of what I thought I needed to do or what everyone else thought I needed to do. And I think for me, I was a really shy kid, so it was easy to throw myself into academics, and it was easy to throw myself into volunteering. The hard thing for me to do was to meet people. Athletics were kind of my way to do that. So I think in taking on so many things, I slid back into my comfort zone. I think what I would do differently if I could go back now was take maybe 1 or 2 less classes and give myself the opportunity to actually really immerse myself in the university experience and meeting people earlier. I did it later on in my 4th and my 5th year, and it completely changed my university experience. I have friends now that I wouldn't have met otherwise, that I'm closer to than people that I knew in my first year that were kind of surface level friends. So I think like realizing, and I think as a type A overachiever, like we're built to kind of take on as much as you can. I think realizing that taking on less is not a failure. It's actually recognizing that it's giving yourself to give more to each of those fewer pieces that you take on.
Yeah, so simplify your schedule, simplify your life, and kind of enjoy the experience a little bit. Very good advice. Now, you finish up at Bishop's. What'd you graduate with?
I graduated with a double major in politics and economics and 2 minors, one in psychology and one in public administration.
Yes, very good. So a lot of things going on there. And then you tried to stay out east, and then you decided you were going to come back home. And so you came back home. Robyn and I met because I was coaching with Winston Brown on his summer games team. Brown, you there? Brown.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm
Hey,
here.
Oh,
Winston.
fish. Anyway, sorry.
Whoa, fish.
Anyway, so we were coaching, and Winston brought. I was coaching with Winston, and Robyn was also joined us, and the three of us kind of just hit it off, and it was a great combination. And then she graduated. Were you still playing when you were coaching with us?
Yeah, I was. That was my second year.
That goes to giving back while you're still in it. So giving back's important. She had really good coaches when she was in high school. She wanted to give back. So we coached, networking, started talking, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. 3 years later, it's not like we weren't like hanging out and talking all the time, but 3 years later, I was starting out Venue Kings. I was like, Brown, I need somebody to hire. You got anybody? He goes, well, Robyn just got back. Hire her. And so, we talked real quick, and, before you know it, Robyn's working at Venue Kings, and we were just a little shop, 1-bedroom apartment. And we were shoving people into a 1-bedroom. I think we had 3 or 4 people. We're going at it, just trying to, fill FedEx envelopes with people used to ship tickets back then. There was no email tickets. Anyway, so she then grew, and as her responsibilities grew, she did better every day. Her responsibilities grew more and more and more, and before you know it, she's pretty much running the company. And so, one of the things I think that the reason I wanted to bring you out is because I think you've achieved so much in such a short amount of time. And so, but I want the girls to correlate basketball to eventually getting a job. And how do you correlate, and what are the benefits to being played on a team? So I believe there's a huge advantage to playing on a team and understanding team dynamics. So I want to see if you agree with that statement, and if so, how?
100%. I mean, I think there's the obvious ones in terms of like dedicating yourself to something, being the sport, and then dedicating something in terms of your efforts and energy to other people. Time management, I think setting goals, like those are all kind of the surface level things that you can identify about being part of a team. I think one really large one for me is like learning how to be a leader, and there's so many different parts of that. One's being more of the vocal leader that people can hear and they can see. And then there's understanding when you need to be the leader that's more allowing other people to take the lead and how to follow. I think it's an exceptionally important part of being a leader, because you have to recognize that you don't know everything, and surrounding yourself with smart people and letting them do their job is really important. I also think that the biggest thing for me in terms of like being a leader, and you've learned this in terms of sports, is like doing what you say you're going to do. Having integrity is one of the biggest things. Like if you're going to set yourself a goal, and you guys, when you relate it back to basketball, if you say like, hey, I'm going to run 3 times a week, or I'm going to work on shooting for half an hour 2 times a week, like not just saying it, but actually doing it, are 2 really different things that I think set people apart. And if you do that little by little, those little things end up being big. And I think that's one of the, people set these massive goals and they're great, but you have to be able to break them down. And I think realizing that doing the little things is actually what leads to the big things.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, one of the things is, you've been hiring for a few years now at Venue Kings. You've kind of taken the lead on hiring. What are you looking for when you are hiring? What are some of the attributes that you feel are important?
Yeah, the funny thing is, I think it does vary. So there's not one answer, But I think in terms of different skills that I look for, it's you look for people that are involved in things because you see that they can manage their time. You look for people that that have a goal, because when you're hiring someone, you are hiring them to represent your company, and you want to see how they carry themselves. I think a really important thing, we often will call references and stuff. So I mean, that's another one. If you have people that you've created relationships with, so like you said earlier, the reason why we met is because we networked. I think having and maintaining relationships is an integral part of not only finding a job, but being able to maintain and grow throughout your career. I honestly, when we look for people that to hire at our company, I think a lot of the times we look for people that are either athletes, because you know that they're used to being part of a team and that they're used to having a task and being able to accomplish it. And then oftentimes we look for people that have worked in the restaurant industry or at coffee shops, because you know they're good at multitasking and dealing with people. So I think those things all have something in common. I would say those are kind of the main ones.
And it's funny that you said that, because Alex Rucker, the other day, he brought up some of the very similar points. Networking. We tied his entire success. He's got one of the best jobs in the entire MBA, and it's directly correlated to his ability to make relationships, to get along with certain people, and those people remembering him in a future time and being like, this guy would fit. So I challenge the girls. I challenge you guys for that. I challenge you to get out and experience things and get people to know who you are and to know who people are, so that if you need something from somebody, you know who has those skills, and kind of putting the skills together to actually get the job done that you want. I would
say too, just on the networking thing, a really big thing is to start doing that in a way that's you're coming from a place of actually having an interest. So if you reach out to somebody and you try and create that connection, maintain it even when you're not looking for something. But when you do need help with something, don't be afraid to reach out to your network and say that. I know for myself, there were a lot of times where I would think oh, I don't want them to think I'm just using them. I don't want them to think that I just want that from them. But at the same time, that's the whole point of networking. I think if you work at creating those relationships and maintaining them, even when you don't need something from that person, they'll be willing and able to reach out and help you when you are looking for something, and they do it from a place of truly caring. But you have to put in the work in order for that to be the case, and you also have to be afraid not to ask.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, circling back, Robyn had mentioned that when she was in high school, her goal was to go to Harvard from when she was a little kid, right? And one of the things that we did when she's accomplished a lot of many things, one of them being that she was a 30 under 30 for BC Business Magazine, which is a big deal, right? BC Business, they pick 30 people every year under the age of 30, and they're high achievers, high quality people that are doing big things, and Robyn was one of those people. Around that time, we ended up getting her a spot in a Harvard executive program. So she never, I think one of the things that, I think in life is very important is circling back and remembering your goals. So her goal was to go to Harvard. She obviously thought it would be, hopefully, that she would go there for regular class, but it didn't end up working out. But she kept going and grinding and doing her thing, and then she ended up going back there for an executive course for a week and making a whole bunch of friends. Tell us a little bit about what it was like to actually go to Harvard for a week and kind of engulf yourself with some high-level CEOs, some professional athletes. Tell us a little bit about who the people were in your class and kind of what it was like to hang out and learn at that level.
Yeah, so I actually graduated from my MBA program at UBC on the 29th of May, and later that day I got on an airplane and I flew to Harvard to do more classes. So it was pretty cool, I won't lie, walking on the campus and going as an actual student. I'd been there before to look around, but it was pretty surreal going and knowing that I was actually going to walk into a classroom as a student. I have a Harvard student number now. Please kind of still get the discount at the student store. It's kind of cool. But going to the class, the thing that I learned that was really kind of an interesting moment was that the school work itself was exactly the same as what I'd been doing at UBC. So I think I had this idea of what the Harvard educational experience would look like in terms of the actual academics. what I realized that the education I'd gotten at Bishop's and UBC was on par with the actual work you'd be doing at a school like Harvard. I think the difference, and it was elevated a little bit in the course that I was in just because of the people that were in the class, but it was more the discussion and, again, the networking. The people that I met there were incredible. Some of them have worked on TV shows. One of the girls was a producer on Jersey Shore. There were athletes that were in the class who've now become good friends, which is crazy. It was a really, really cool week of being able to immerse myself in something. It's the course itself was called The Business of Media, Entertainment, and Sport. So it's all the things that intrigue me in my career, as well as things that interest me outside of my job, and being able to go and do that. I mean, there were athletes in the class, like Lindsey Vonn was in the class, PK Subban was in the class, Chris Bosh was in the class. I got to watch the NBA Finals sitting next to Chris Bosh, so that was kind of cool. It was actually really cool. And so now, like, I think for me, it was this realizing that I had this idea in my head of what I thought my education was going to look like, as one example. But I think what I realized was being open to the idea that that might not be the exact path that got me there, and that it was this really weird, crazy, winding road that eventually led me back. But I got to do what I had set out to do. It just didn't look exactly the way I thought it would. It actually ended up, for me, I think, being better. I was a completely different person going back and in that program than I would have been in my undergrad. So I think being a little bit more vulnerable and open and willing to walk up to someone like a Michael Strahan and just have a conversation, I wouldn't have been like that when I was 17 or 18 meeting anybody at school. So I think going through all of the things that I went to led me to that experience, and they made me ready for it. And the really cool part about that now is that beyond just being able to be in that course, like, there was one other girl and the prof at the school who we've now taken on this whole idea, and we created a completely separate thing, and we ended up throwing a reunion for all of the classes in Miami last year. So it kind of took that experience, and then it took off to a complete other one that's now an ongoing. We're actually planning a virtual reunion for June 3rd now, because we were supposed to be doing another one this year or this month in Miami, actually right now. So we're doing a virtual one. So we'll see who turns up for that. But I think the main message here is that it's good to have a goal, and it's awesome to be able to work towards it. But I think having some flexibility, if you have a goal, you may kind of go in a winding road and you may not end up in the same place, but at least you went in a direction with a purpose. And I don't think you can ever go wrong if you do that.
Yeah, Robyn, I was going to actually ask you that question. How important was goal setting in your journey? Because one of the things we're talking to our younger athletes about is setting goals and giving themselves some direction. So if you could kind of expand on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I would say, honestly, and for as much guidance and as much regimented like infrastructure in terms of athletics I grew up with when I was younger, I didn't really goal set probably until later in university, if not even after that. And now I actually do it where I set every year on New Year's Eve, I go through and I look, and I actually look through the goals that I set the previous year, and I set new ones. So I set, and I have like annual goals and I have 5-year goals. And the crazy thing about it was, when I first started doing it, I didn't look back at them other than every year on New Year's Eve. I would look back. And as I started to do it, I started to realize that even just writing those ones down, I was starting to accomplish them. So there is a really true thing, I think, about the more you put out into the universe, the more it's almost like you're setting in your intentions. And I think the more you tell people about it, the more that you have people holding you accountable. Most important person is obviously you have to hold yourself accountable, because that's what you want for your life. But I think at the same time, once you write them down and once you verbalize them, it starts to become more real. If they're just in your head, they're really easy to kind of let go. And I think the more that you set them on paper, the more that the rest of your life starts to come around those, and it lets you have an environment where they're easier to accomplish.
Absolutely. You know, one of the reasons why we're doing these interviews after we work out, well, obviously we need to work out because it's important, because we get to take care of ourselves on the court. And then the reason we're doing these interviews is because I'm trying to bring people that I believe to be truly successful in their areas of whatever they're doing. And I think one of the things we've learned is it's all tied in together. You know, basketball brings people together. It makes people work towards a common goal, and it forces people to actually continually be part of a team, and that translates. And that's what I want. I want you girls to understand, right? Like there was a book I gave to one of our teams a couple of years ago called Girl Boss. I thought it was fantastic. You know, Robyn's definition of that, I think she's doing a fantastic job. But more importantly, you know, she's putting in the time. She's put in the time. She's continually getting better. She's continually working to take her game to the next level. Just like you would on a basketball court, she's doing the same thing in her life. And so I say thank you, Robyn, for coming out. Girls, let's give her a round of applause and say thank you so much.